We have to cut carbon emissions in half by the year 2030. And with over 60% of an individual's carbon footprint being linked to consumption, we have to start understanding the impact of consumption on our planet and start choosing lower impact products. It's one of the most important decisions we as individuals can make each day. But for that, we need brands to carbon label their products. Unfortunately, it's really hard and expensive for them to calculate their product's carbon footprint. This is especially worrisome since small and medium-sized brands that want to be transparent about the impact of their products simply lack the resources to do so. Doconomy is a Swedish impact tech that provides digital services to help consumers reduce the footprint generated by their consumption. With this in mind, Doconomy launched the 2030 Calculator, a tool allowing any brand to calculate the carbon footprint of their product. It cuts down on the time spent calculating from weeks to minutes, and the cost from thousands of dollars to no cost at all. The 2030 Calculator is an open platform where each brand that performs a calculation contributes their own emission data, enabling competitors to use the same data and methodology to calculate their product's carbon footprint. The launch generated global attention from brands, media, and academia, driving the necessary understanding and prioritizing to accelerate brands' ability to carbon label their products. And as a result, more brands have started calculating their products' carbon footprints, making sure consumers understand the true cost of consumption.
Hi, my name is Don McMaffei, part of the SC Ventures team. I want to welcome you all to our podcast entitled Reshaping Our Activities to Reduce Our Impact on the Earth. As the 2021 Singapore FinTech Festival continues, we're having many interesting conversations around new trends, innovations in the FinTech sphere. But the subject we're going to cover today is obviously a little different and yet so important. The IPCC Climate Change 2021 report and the ongoing United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP26, has catapulted the environmental challenge we face into the spotlight. But the truth is that meaningful change can only happen if we all take environmental impact seriously by reshaping our own personal activities to build a sustainable future. This problem isn't going to just be solved by the large corporates and the large financial institutions. We all need to play our part. Everything you and I do has an environmental impact, including the products that we buy, the transactions we make. We often aren't aware of that impact because we have no visibility on what that is. But new technologies begin to provide that transparency for us. It's still early days for this technology, but we are now seeing the start of a journey for the next Googles and Amazons that will be built in the space to help drive the dramatic and necessary systematic shift required to meet climate change. Media attention has also accelerated over the past few years. Some of the bigger themes we've seen are the fact that financial services play a key role into helping us get to net zero by 2050. US $3 trillion needs to be invested in decarbonization solutions over the next 3 years to achieve a 1.5 degree warming scenario. That's 4 times the current investment levels. And climate fintech has become a key driver in emerging technology to help solve some of these problems. So to explore the potential that both fintech and financial institutions have in leading the climate change movement, we have with us today Matthias Wickstrom from Doconomy and Manohar Chatalavada from Standard Chartered Bank joining the podcast today. Matthias is the CEO of Doconomy, which was founded in 2018 as an impact tech startup that invests in new measures to tackle climate change. Doconomy partners with other key stakeholders to develop an ecosystem of financial tools to educate and drive positive change. While Manohar is the global head of AI, ecosystems, and open banking at Standard Chartered Bank. He's been with Standard Chartered for 16 years as an experienced professional in digital, fintech, AI, ecosystem banking, partnerships, APIs, and risk management. A long list, Manohar. So Matthias and Manohar, thanks for joining us this afternoon. And let's start from the beginning. Can you each tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you started your journey in the financial space? Manohar, take it away.
Thanks, Dominic. That was a long introduction. But yeah, just for others, I'm Manohar. I've been in the bank for 16 years, as Dominic already talked about. I worked in various geographies in Frankfurt, Dubai, Manila, and now in Singapore. And of course, India has been my base. After finishing my grad, which is an engineering grad, the first job I got was Standard Chartered. It was the ANZ Green List before, so I got into that and then just moved into that journey. A very interesting journey, and thanks to Standard Chartered that I've been doing various roles, understanding what's happening, and I think journeyed a fair bit of banking over the last 17, 18 years now. Thanks, Matthias.
Thank you, Manohar, and thank you, Dominic. So great to be on this podcast and have this conversation. I think before I introduce myself, I think it's fair to say that it is in conversations like this, change can actually start to get activated and to propel forward. And knowing that coming from larger conversations just a few days ago, I think this is a brilliant opportunity to share experiences and to also sort of try to engage with everyone out there listening in on this. So my name is Matthias Wikström. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Doconomy. Me and my co-founder Johan Pihl founded Doconomy a few years back, but we've been working together for 25 years. So I guess we have been stress tested to some extent. With a background in service design and communication, working out of innovation perspective with a MBA from Stockholm School of Economics in just innovation, and always trying in most of the products and projects that we have worked with, trying to not only communicate but also to innovate, to illustrate the end game, but also tell the story, how to get there, the narrative on how to get to that desired end state. And I think today that narrative is something that the world is desperate to renew. And I think we see that of all the news coming out of COP26. There is a lot of ambition in the air. So looking forward to what that potentially could bring to become realities as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you both. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about this partnership, how it was conceived, and what goals you set?
Yeah, so I'll go first, and then Matthias can add on. So thanks. I'm very passionate about working with fintechs over the last 5-6 years, and we've done a lot of stuff on this. And I think fintech and collaborative partnerships are an important part of the future of Standard Chartered. In the actually fast-moving world, we think collaborative partnerships are very key for every institution's success. And this is key for Standard Chartered as well. This particular partnership with Matthias, we began discussions in late 2020, where we realized that the clients actually wanted to be able to act in an environmentally conscious way, but they needed help. They wanted tools and capabilities to positively modify their behavior. To us, measurements seemed like the logical start to the journey. So we began engaging with an ecosystem of various partners. We tested him, and then we found Doconomy as standing out from them. That's one of the reasons why we had chosen Doconomy. As goals go, this perfectly fits into the bank's overarching aspirations to be the most sustainable bank. By partnering with Doconomy, we are able to actually create great awareness with our client base. We've been doing it in a couple of markets now. We launch shortly, while providing to them the latest tools and technologies to manage their own impact on climate. So we're not only exposing them to the problem, but we're giving them actually means to act and be a part of that solution. And that's the whole game plan around tying up with Doconomy. Matthias, you want to add something there?
I think this is one of the most important partnerships that we have entered into. Standard & Chartered has for a long time been a front runner in the sustainability space, not only within retail banking, but within many other measures as well. And as a fintech startup from the Nordics, we're working to drive positive change by providing a language for impact in every trend. Start trying to team up with the thought leaders, with the big giants in this space, and Standard & Chartered certainly stood out. But I also think that at the end of the day, it comes down to people. People drive change, and you need to find the change makers and the passionate sort of entrepreneurs in all of the organizations. And we were very fortunate to early on strike into conversation with Manohar and his team, and it's I'd say we were jokingly prior to this saying that a few years ago we could go out for a beer after this conversation. And I think over time, working in such an important area in a topic that touches the interest and the future of so many people, you sort of develop more of a friendship than just a professional relationship. And I'm very, very honored to be working with Standard & Chartered, and that is also what we hear in the market. A lot of people, especially around greenwashing and what is really being done and what is just being said, what is just language and what is tangible action. And working with Standard & Chartered, we feel very confident that the partnership that we have entered into will not only deliver to a few, but to the many in many different markets around the world. And we already see that happening. So I'm very proud to see this materialize. Of course, for Doconomy going forward, it is also a stress test or a sort of certification of approval to have such a giant working with us. And that is also something that we both recognize and appreciate. But I hope that we can still remain challenging and encouraging at the same time working in this relationship, because we're coming from two completely different ecosystems, one being the very powerful supertanker and us being the more exploratory speedboat. And I think we can really, as it has proven up until now, continue to complement each other on this journey.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Matthias. Since I have you, why don't we spend just a minute or two more digging in a bit deeper on Doconomy? Would you mind sharing with us just a bit more about, what made you guys decide to found this, what your journey's been, and then if you have any points around differentiation with some of your peers, that I think that would be interesting also.
Oh, Dominic, be careful what you ask for now. How many hours?
I said a couple minutes.
Okay, a couple of minutes. Okay, so the motivation, I think, was really to break through the current clutter, to see if we could make a language for impact work in every transaction, in every product, to set up a language around educating the many and to render insights that enable them to also act on the insights and engage people to such an extent that they would do it over and over again. And we sort of, using financial language, we believe in the aggregation of marginal gain. So if we can get a lot of people to do little things, that will be something massive over time. And I think that is something that is extremely critical to the situation that we are in, to educate everyone to become more knowledgeable around the crisis that we are facing. That was the trigger to why we set up Doconomy, I think. And now we're just trying to make it work, and to see this materialize in partnerships like this is truly amazing. And I would say that the journey has been beyond our wildest expectations. Already today, we're working with partners, and partnership is at the core of what we try to do. This is not a one-man band, and already today we're working with partners representing over 360 million users on global level. And that is obviously going to evolve going forward, and it brings hope because it brings also comparability as well as consistency. And I think there is so many people with an opinion out there, but without data and without correct and reliable data, that will just be opinions that will erode over time. But I also think that the difference that we tried to bring was the ecosystem perspective. Instead of being good in a very niche, working across verticals, working on a horizon, trying to engage many stakeholders through the partnerships in order to reach the many in many geographies, but also to make impact relevant in all decisions. We understand, I've got 2 children on my own. I also get up early in the morning, it's freezing cold. One has a runny nose and one has forgot their gym bag in order to get there. So we are building the ecosystem around calculating on transaction level, and we're seeing that going live within Standard & Chartered, which we're very proud of, connecting it to every transaction you make. We're also enabling small and medium-sized companies and large multinationals as well, for that matter, to calculate the carbon footprint cradle to gate on their products, which is the next level of data allows it, and the user wants it because it's completely voluntary, of course. We're also looking to do a global ability in regard of calculating your lifestyle carbon footprint to begin with, just to get an understanding of what is a carbon footprint, what drives it, what can I act on, how can I reduce my impact through lifestyle choices and change the behavior. So just now, a week ago at COP26, we launched together with United Nations Climate Change, or UNFCCC, a lifestyle calculator for your carbon footprint that is open to all, that is consistent, and that is something that provides a common ground from which to take this conversation forward, a common ground from which to understand what your footprint is and to act to reduce it. But there's one thing, I know this is a long rant, and I'm sorry, but we're trying to do a lot of many things. And there's one thing that is also extremely important, and that is the interconnectivity, which makes me even more proud of working with Standard & Chartered, because we're looking at calculating the CO2 emissions equivalent impact per transaction, but also adding the water component. Because this is not a carbon tunnel that we are in. We need to keep everything else into perspective in regard of biodiversity, in regard of land use, in regard of the social components, as well as, of course, carbon and many other factors. So Standard & Chartered and Doconomy will be first out in the region to launch a calculation that calculates both the CO2 emissions as well as the water impact transaction by transaction. So we're very proud of that.
Thanks. Matthias. Just to add, I think the one point which Matthias made, it enables our consumers to not only understand how their activities affect their carbon footprint, but enables them to start changing their behavior in a positive way. I think the change of behavior needs to be stressed. That's very important. As for Doconomy specifically, to answer your question, Dominic, from our side, they were doing the right things. We felt they had solid foundation underpinning their technology or their solution. They had a good view of the technology which is required, which was not engineering, right? They knew exactly what needs to be done, what are the right tech. They just not like just quantum. Quantum is exciting, but let's use the tech, right? That makes the most sense. I think that's what underpinned us to join up with Doconomy. I think over a period of time, hopefully this relationship nurtures into a larger one. Thanks. Dominic, over to you.
Great. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Manar. Appreciate the insight in reducing environmental impact. And if you have any examples to share to bring that to life.
Thanks, Dominic. I think it's very relevant in this era. We see climate change as one of the greatest challenges faced by the bank today, or the world today, with the impact that it has on environment and people's lives and livelihood. I think very important, particularly in the communities and markets we operate. We operate predominantly in Asia, Africa, and Middle East. The challenge is big. Everyone needs to come together, actually, because we have to come together to get this happening. Banks and financial institutions have a very important role to play through leveraging the financial system to tackle climate change, minimize the impact of global warming. Banks will play a vital role in many ways, including the provision of capital to finance the investments in renewables, climate adaptation technologies, which is what we're trying to do, in addition to altering our own behavior, stress on behavior again, to change funding cycles patterns, right? Banks will play a very key role in providing data so that our clients can change their own behavior. I think it's all coming to how do you change behavior to get this enabled, right? That's most important. So the role banks play has multiplying effect across their own activities and the activities of their clients in the market. So this is very critical. And I will, as we go through this session, call out some few examples which the bank has been doing and will do in the future. Matthias?
That's great. That's great. Matthias, did you want to add anything on the banking side, or?
No, I think that's. I think it would be a little bit naive for me to top that, but obviously Manohar has the best of insights. But I think what we're learning and what we're seeing from the financial services industry, the banking sector, and the payment tech companies, everyone is beginning to understand the role that they can play. Everyone is beginning to understand, or maybe not everyone, but a lot of people are beginning to understand the responsibilities that comes with big size, that comes with great strength. And the power of the financial services sector's efficiencies in catering to the competitiveness of the financial services system, and how that can be applied to cater to the fragilities of the global ecosystem. And I think that is, there will always be a few front runners and a few leaders showing the way and putting a flag on the moon saying, guys, we can do this if we work together. And I think coming back to the examples Manohar is putting to you guys, I think that there is so many different angles on this, but that we cannot be afraid of using the relevant tools. There will always be, quantum AI, lots of amazing things coming forward, but let's start small and build big. We don't have to go for perfect day one, but we got to get this ball into motion and approach perfect according to a mutual roadmap that we can all agree upon. It's more important than get started to begin with. And I think that takes a bit of bravery, it takes a bit of guts, but it also takes a lot of client insights and having clients really being vocal around the fact that they would like to know, they would like to better understand. And in order to do that, they could also contribute by changing behavior to this part.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Matthias. I guess, Manohar, you opened up the topic around some of the more specific examples. So why don't, if you could share a few of the specific examples where Standard Chartered is working on projects or initiatives to drive sustainability, that would be great.
Thanks, Dominic. Again, I think it's a relevant question and it's a leading question from the earlier answers. I think publicly, Standard Chartered has a vision to be the most sustainable and responsible bank. This is out in the public, right? We are committed to sustainable social and economic development through our businesses, operations, and communities. And we have publicly stated all this, right? We believe in contributing to a future where purpose and profit have equal footing. That's very clear. We are committed to achieve by 2030 and financing activities by 2050. And that is also publicly committed. What we are doing specifically falls under three broad themes. The first is reduce financed emissions, finance transition projects, and accelerate new solutions. I will just touch on that, new solutions, right? We are partnering with clients and best-in-class ESG startups to build innovative ESG-focused new business models. That's all there in the public. And I want to call out one new development, which I think got announced yesterday, which is a recent launch of a new venture in the UK called Shawl, which will invest exclusively in projects aligned with key ESG themes and will give retail savers the money, power to select which of those themes their money supports. I think that's a big one coming from SC Ventures, right? In this way, Shawl empowers its community to channel their savings directly to the causes that matter most to them. Again, getting more people involved in being part of the solution by unlocking retail capital to help shore up the annual, I think 5 to 7 trillion, right, Dominic? shortfall in the private financing needed to fulfill the UN sustainable goals, development goals, right? That's the key one. It got announced, I think, yesterday, and publicly announced. And I wanted to call this out very specifically as an example where Standard Chartered is driving, sustainability. Dominic?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I mean, there's quite a bit going on across the platform, within the bank, within SC Ventures. Obviously, Shoal, as mentioned, there's a couple other projects we're working on. We have one called Project Huma, still in the project phase, but that's a marketplace that creates connectivity in investor, ESG project, and startups, leveraging public and private ESG forensics to help solve that greenwashing issue. That is obviously one of the larger challenges in the space. We're also working with clients, as you said, Manohar. We're working with NG on a sustained ATOM certification capability, which is a carbon emissions valuation functionality that creates an interesting tool that Huma is going to use as part of a KYC ESG capability. But it's also a tool that's going to be used, I think, as a building block for numerous other business models, much like Doconomy in that way. So great. So it's been mentioned earlier that everything we do has an impact on the environment. And at this point, it'd be great if either of you or both want to share some perspective or examples on how consumer and enterprise behavior is affecting the environment right now, what you're seeing. And then also, if you have any insight as to why the change in acceleration. I mean, I think, anyone you talk to, kind of pre-pandemic, these were all issues we were talking about, but now, everyone's talking about, it's on everyone's lips. So if either one of you could share some insight into that, it would be interesting for the group, I think.
Sure, I could jump on that one if I may. I think it's interesting to see how pace is picking up, and there has been a lot of research compared to previous years. I think there's a lot of research in the market now, and of course, reading up on the research, you need to be mindful of the sources as well as the geographies from which they origin. But I think MasterCard did a survey, recent one, where 85% of adults claimed that they were willing to take climate action in 2021. 85%, that's a high number. And then, of course, it remains to be decided what is climate action. And I would say climate action, in my personal perspective, is to educate yourself, to enable yourself with the appropriate tools, and to engage in getting things done in a measurable way. I think we all can agree that we owe that to the next generation to try to leave this planet in a better state than when we found it. And I think that it's safe to say that it's the only option. We can only leave this planet in a better state. Everything else is deemed to be disastrous. I think that it has great implications on political landscapes. However, the political landscape is a reflection, I would say, out of the society in which we reside. It's up to us to drive that change. And politicians will follow the lead of the enterprises and the commercial markets. You vote for your politicians in Sweden every 4 years. You vote for your brands or your financial services provider every day. So I think there is a lot of traction, a lot of momentum. On the more pessimistic note, University of Bath just did a survey on the climate crisis, and it turns out that 40% of young people today across 10 markets are reluctant to having children at all because of the state of the planet and the trajectory that we are on. So I think there is a fair amount of engagement to be done, and there is a fair amount of hope to be rendered in order for this to be going in the right direction.
Great, thanks a lot, Matthias. So, since we have you here, and it's my understanding that you're just back from COP26 and you have kind of a brutal travel schedule upcoming, although sitting in Hong Kong, it's a bit enviable, a bit envious, admittedly. But if you could share with us just some findings or some insights or just kind of some interesting facts that you got from COP26, especially in relation to financial services, that would be very interesting.
Sure. I would be a little bit naive to think that I can give you all a complete perspective of what's going on in Glasgow, because it's the intensity is tremendous, and I think that's maybe one of the insights actually. And leading up to this, the climate crisis and mitigating this and changing behavior. 10 years ago, that was not really a talking point to the many people. But looking at what's going on in Glasgow today, I think we can truly see a shift in perspective, a shift in attraction and understanding around this. And I have truly tried to break out of my own silo, because if I'm looking at, if I'm talking to you guys, or if I'm talking to the people I'm working with, or within the area of my expertise, obviously there will be a lot of conversations around the climate crisis and what to do about it. So I did, as I always do, I asked my mother, so what do you think of COP26? Instead of listening to what I think it gives a sobering perspective. And that sort of reinforced my belief, actually, because she said that, COP26, I don't know much about the details, but I know this, and that is that it's going to take many people to do small things, to get things done, and then we will be in a good place. But there is a long way from protesting to actual action in everyday life. So I think when she says that, then COP26 has broken through a few barriers. But on the more, say, out of a financial markets perspective, I think the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero was pretty good to mobilize trillions of dollars and to coordinate these actions to reach net zero no later than 2050. But there's also, the numbers are so big. It's like, so what are you going to do with all this money? How is this, what kind of ripple effects can we see? How is this going to reach the communities most hurt by the climate crisis? We also saw the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, and they've already have substantial funding. I think it's over 10 billion US, and they aim to raise 10 times that number. So that's also, of course, a very good indicator. And then we have other factors like the forest perspective or the coal perspective, where there has been claims and agreements around ending coal and stopping deforestation. But there is always a fair amount of skepticism around this, depending on who is signing off on it, and when is it to be done, and how is it measured. I think that even the what's it called, the Glasgow leaders declaration of forest and land use, aiming to have ended deforestation by 2030. And there's over 100 countries signing on to this, out of which one being Brazil, and some of the more aggressive skeptics claim that maybe by then Bolsonaro has already cut down all of the Amazon, so it's quite easy to sign on to not cutting down even more. But I think we should regard all of these claims through a lens of hope, through a lens of ambition, but not being naive, of course. We need to follow up on all of these claims. Yesterday, there is a group called the Climate Impact something. There's an article in The Guardian that was published yesterday. And looking at the short-term goals for every nation, the aggregated trajectory would be that of 2.4 degrees increase. And that's by far higher than the recently predicted 1.8. And if we're looking at 2.4, and if everyone agrees that on national level, short term, that is where we're going to have to step up the game. We're going to have to get more ambitious than that. We're going to have to show the world that we can do this, and we can do this in collaboration. But it takes for a lot of the large countries to support the smaller and more vulnerable nations. And it also calls for some brave political decisions. Has there been any brave political decisions at COP26 yet that is beyond the expected? No, I don't think so. Nothing that really rocks the boats, that really truly indicates that, okay, I'm putting my political ambition aside in order to make use of the political trust bestowed in me to safeguard this planet. No, not yet, but let's hope for it.
Great, thank you. Your mom definitely sounds like a wise woman. So following along
I'll let her know. I'll let her know.
Yes, next time maybe bring her.
Yes.
So no, look, I guess it's interesting you're talking about the conference, talking about the summits, and obviously they're drivers of change. So, but that's not all we can depend on, of course. If that's all you do, then we don't solve the problem ahead of us. Do you have any views, and Manohar, please chime in as well, around how fintechs and financial institutions can drive more widespread engagement and activation among stakeholders?
I'll go first. I'll be very brief, Dominic. In fact, I think fintechs have a big role to play in this because they are innovative, they are nimble, and they can bring in new ideas. That's a given. We've also seen a lot of engagement. If you see, I don't know how many people have seen the announcement of NOVA. NOVA is an initiative launched by MAS and the National AI Office here in Singapore to track ESG ratings of companies. And finally, they will eventually go into corporates. And they've invited a lot of fintechs to come participate in that competition, right? So there is a lot of traction there for fintechs to come and solve and do some interesting products, including a roadmap for wealth, having an ESG portfolio. So there's just too much to do, Dominic. Okay, and I think Matthias can add more value because he's working in that ecosystem. But I think the potential on fintech, especially in the sustainability space, is immense.
Thank you, Manohar. Point made. I guess I got to go back to the team and get going on working on the solutions of tomorrow. And I completely agree. The fintechs and the climate fintechs or the impact techs has a lot of things to deliver to, and a lot of opportunity and a lot of responsibility. And I think we already today see a lot of great movement in this space. It's an ever-growing ecosystem of both ambition and capabilities. I'm very proud to see a lot of these initiatives coming out of Sweden, but there is also very solid ones coming out of Asia, coming out of other parts of Europe, that we see are complementing the services that we are providing and that we are really fortunate to team up with. So I think we will see a faster conversion in this market than any other more mature and indicative market than we have seen before. We will see more alliances of the willing in between fintechs, making each other's capabilities cater to the development of each other's businesses. And I think that's a very non-orthodox format of corporate relationships that will be critical in this. It's not only going to be about service design, innovation, and data and tech. It's also going to be around trust, relationships, and the mutual ambition to drive positive and substantial change. So I think that the climate fintech or the impact tech sector, it's a beautiful place to be right now because there is so many good ideas coming out of there, not only from Doconomy, although I'm very proud of what we do, but there's many other bright minds in this space doing really good things as well.
Great, good. I'm going to change gears quickly. We don't have too much more time, but I wanted to talk briefly or touch on carbon offsets. Obviously, the bank is a big supporter of TSVCM. We're partners on the new carbon exchange in Singapore. Very excited about the 6th initiative. And Doconomy is also helping to introduce a feature into the consumer space with the ability to measure product level carbon footprint and acquire offsets for those. Matthias, can you tell us a little bit more about what this means for consumers?
Yeah, the basic bottom line is that we don't want to leave anyone guilty, pointing fingers, saying you're doing the wrong thing or you're doing bad. We want to be able to provide people with some part of solution as well. We will always consume. For the part that you cannot reduce, we can offer you the ability to offset through our partners. Carbon offsetting will never be a financial revenue stream for the economy. We don't want to make money on that. We want to be able to direct and connect the need with the provider. So working with the UNFCCC and their expertise in regard of carbon offsetting has been instrumental to our way forward, and also working together with Patch out of the US, providing offsetting services as an API. That's a good complement, I think, to assist users and our partners in providing this. Long term, I think I applaud what happened in the UK yesterday with Scholes, the launch of that, making your investments cater to the planetary health rather than your offsets or donations. So I think that's a very sound kind of next step. And I'm also very fascinated by the work that Climeworks are doing with direct carbon capturing and the actual math behind that. If you could price carbon, which is one of the missing components in the language of positive change, but if you could price carbon and you could have a direct carbon capturing facility set up within X period of time with Y capacity, then this would all be about the maths. Then we would know how much would we need to invest in that kind of tech. And looking at the trajectory of solar as an indicator for where direct carbon capturing can go out of a pricing perspective, I think we would know how much it would cost to restore as much as possible. Obviously, everything is interconnected, so this is not something that is as simple as I might paint it out to be. But then we would know the approximate cost of restoring the planet.
Great, thank you. Look, guys, it looks like we've pretty much run out of time here. So, I guess to wrap up, I'm going to summarize in one sentence, and I'm going to borrow from somebody infinitely more intelligent than me. Lord Kelvin once said, if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it, right? So obviously we're all facing a great challenge in the climate crisis, but being able to measure that impact and change behavior based on that impact is truly a fundamental step in facing that challenge. So look, I hope you all enjoyed the session as much as I did. Please make sure to check out the FinTech Bridge if you want to catch a recording. Also, if you just want to see some of the problem statements of the bank or be a part of that growing community of innovators, where you're going to see quite a bit of interesting content around sustainability as well. So again, thank you very much. Please check out some of the other podcasts we have around ESG. We've got one on AI coming up as well. And thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Manohar, for a great conversation today. Some really interesting insights. And of course, thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Matthias. See you.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, Dominic.